Take me back to like your own personal story or your own personal introduction to craft beer. What was that? First of all, do you remember what you were drinking before?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of Boulevard primarily. I mean, this, you know, in the 1990s and late 1990s. I mean, lots of Boulevard. I was in Arizona at that time, and I moved to Lincoln in 2003. And you know, it was still pretty hard to find craft beer in Nebraska. There were a few places like Empyrean, certainly, kind of the grandfather of the industry here in Nebraska, was making great beers, and that was kind of my first introduction to beers outside of that Boulevard group. Was, you know, oh, okay, this is some really interesting stuff that Empyrean's doing to me in 2003. This is great, you know, it's a great entree, and they had a pretty diverse portfolio at that time. So, you know, I'll always be very appreciative to those guys for everything that they did and kind of coming before and laying some groundwork for guys like us.
And how did you get started brewing beer?
A friend of mine, who was my neighbor when I moved to Lincoln, basically bought us a kit for a mutual Christmas present. And we've, you know, made a 5-gallon batch on just the classic, you know, 5-gallon plastic bucket.
Good old mash. And
yep, the you know, the kind of classic ale pail kit. And it was a lot of fun. We primarily were brewing to just sit around and have an excuse to drink and, you know, hang out for 5 hours, and that kind of was my primary motivation all along. And it didn't always make for the best beer, but it made for a very good time.
Yeah. So. No, of course. I guess at what point did Zipline as a brewery, did that idea kind of start to manifest itself?
Probably the summer of 2011. Okay. So we all got together. We played in a softball league, and we realized that we were having these kind of similar conversations with other people and not having them with ourselves. And then these people that we were talking to about the same things put us in a room essentially and said, "You guys need to start talking to each other because we don't want to hear any more about this because we don't care." And so we
like perpetually in your mind.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about, you know, what we thought the craft brewing scene was doing and what it was like and what we thought we could offer that might be slightly different and how that would all come together. And then in the fall of 2011, one of my partners convinced me to go to Chicago to take essentially some coursework on starting a brewery. And it was like, I don't know, about $1,200.
Okay.
And I thought, well, this is money wasted, you know, but I'll go if you'll shut up about this and we don't have to talk about it anymore because this is crazy. We're not going to start a brewery.
James, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not going to start a brewery, so I'm just going to, you know, throw away $1,200, but it'll get you off my back. So we went. It was a 3-day course, and I went with the intent of convincing myself that it was a bad idea. And halfway through, we were completely sold that it was the greatest idea we could possibly pursue.
What was that moment? Like, do you remember, like, was it something that they said? Was it like the opportunity? Was it like an acknowledgement or a confirmation of, hey, you do have the ability to create? What?
You know, I think it was confidence that we could make good beer, but that we had confidence in each other that we could run the company in a productive way, and we had common ideals about what the beer should be like, what the branding should look like, what the company should be in terms of its relationship to the community, and what kind of space we wanted to create, and what kind of goals we wanted to achieve. And when we had 3 days by ourselves, which we had never really had before, we could have that communication over multiple beers, of course. And it's funny how the more beers you have, the more you can convince yourself that it's a great idea to start a brewery. So that was a lot of it, but that was kind of the turning point for me personally.
Well, we get asked actually quite a lot about, you know, aspiring small business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs, you know, hey, like, how do you start a lounge, or, you know, how do you start a pub, or, you know, how do you start a hookah place? And I'm curious, I mean, you guys have like such great success over the past few years, and I was wondering what stumbling blocks you guys faced in those opening years, and, like, you know, was there ever any struggles for you guys as you navigated this route?
Sure. I mean, there's a struggle every day. You know, I mean, when you own your own business, there's always something that comes up, particularly when you have a growth trajectory that's pretty steep, and we've been fortunate enough to kind of be embraced by the community, and they've kind of carried our initial growth out more quickly than we thought we would do. But it's really hard to balance that growth with staying true to your identity and what you want to achieve, making sure that you're reflecting on your business plan and your principles that you wanted to start the company to pursue. And, little challenges come up every day. Maybe we have a problem with a tank or a weld or a drain or a contract or a hop availability. I mean, those are little challenges, but if you can always kind of take a step back and ask yourself, are we still staying true to the primary mission?
Yeah.
Then you can generally overcome that stuff. But, most of the challenges that we faced are the common business challenges. I mean, financing, how are we going to make sure that we're getting enough, revenue in the door to make sure that the bills are getting paid and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really dependent on, again, kind of staying true to your vision. And if you're doing that, then everything else, hopefully takes care of itself.
You've mentioned like a lot of things, like financing part, the marketing part, the branding part, obviously the product, staying true to principles and culture. From your perspective, do you see a common pitfall that, young business owners face?
Well, I think...
Or like something maybe they don't pay enough attention to?
Sure.
Or is there like maybe an area that you wish you paid more attention to, looking back?
I tend to be kind of cautious by nature, and so I think things through a lot on the front end, but then once that we've achieved or made a decision to do something, I don't tend to second guess it much because I don't see a lot of value to that.
Which is a great trait to have, by the way. Like, seriously.
So I think, the main thing that you can do is wring your hands to the point where you become immobile.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't continue to move forward in the face of adversity, then you can freeze up and you can find yourself losing opportunities. By the same token, you can also get what I call the Midas touch syndrome, where you think everything, if you have a little success, well, if I open a brewery, then I can open a bar, or I can open a software company or whatever. And you see a lot of that, I think, with successful people generally. They tend to start thinking that they can do anything that they want. And my, I guess, advice in that respect is do your thing and do it really well and really focus on that thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come from at it. I think, stay true to yourself, understand what you want to achieve. Once you've made a decision, don't ever second guess it. But at the same time, don't ever think that because you enjoy a little success here, you can't fall down somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Absolutely. I think that's like part of our story as well, which is just, we spent the first 2 years cultivating an interest and passion and like craft of hookah, and then wanting to expand that into the beer, and like we're in the throes of that right now,
Mm-hmm.
like talking to people like you, learning from people, experiencing the different beers, and like, taking the time to level up that skill set. And it's hard, it's hard to do both. And I think that's really solid advice. How do the struggles today differ from the struggles when you first started? And what are the current things that, keep you up at night? What are the things that are on your mind of, hey, like, I really want to see our vision being fulfilled? And what are the obstacles that you identify?
Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple of things. The things that keep me up at night, to be specific, are generally things that are beyond our control.
Yeah.
Certainly, this is a production facility ultimately, and we use raw materials.
Mm-hmm.
And the availability of raw materials and the quality of raw materials can change, especially when you're dealing with things that are essentially biological, like grain and hops and other things. And so the things that keep me up at night is, we make a big contract with a particular hop vendor, and then that hop vendor either suffers a bad year, or they perhaps run into financial straits and they can't honor the contract, or alternatively, the hops aren't, grown that year, or what have you. And so we generally project 2 to 3 years out when we do our production schedules and our contracting. And so what scares me a little bit is, will what we need be there 3 years from now when we need it to achieve the objectives that we set out? But again, those are kind of things that are beyond your control, so there's only so much hand-wringing
how do you
can do
mitigate
about it.
that? How do you try to address that ahead of time?
We try to diversify suppliers in case there's a particularized event that might interrupt supply chains. We also try to balance that with the need to minimize costs, which sometimes means buying volume and
in bulk,
and those types of things. But by and large, the things that we can control rarely keep me up at night. It's usually the things that are beyond our ability to deal,
Yeah.
to deal with, where we're reacting to, that causes me concern.
Yeah, I just got done interviewing Tom. That dude's so legit, so awesome. I'm really, really thankful to have guys like him in the community who are just willing to talk with you, share with you, so open about his business and their mission and what they're trying to do. And I think that more than anything else is what makes the small business community special, is what makes Lincoln special, what makes Omaha special, is there's no pretentiousness about it. I mean, we're talking about one of the most successful companies in Lincoln in the past, 3 years. Won Small Business of the Year award in 2014, and is just willing to sit down and talk with you and bullshit with you and hang out. And he's so generous, and I just can't thank him enough. And it's also a real call to action for us. Like, we ought to be giving back. We ought to be contributing as much as possible. That's what we try and do. It's what we endeavor to do at Leaf and Hops and at Hookah 402. And it's so encouraging. So, man, thank you so much. Excited. See you guys soon.